Welcome to Dark Futures. Today's question is, will there be dark days ahead? The answer is most definitely yes. There are a number of threats mankind will have to deal with, and many of them can't be neutralized. Climate change is a well-known threat, yet all of its implications aren't discussed. It's not just a matter of rising temperatures and sea levels. Climate change will destroy agrarian land on a large scale. That will entail two problems. The first problem is that there will be a shortage of several foods that are grown around the equator and that could potentially lead to global famine. The second problem is that there will be mass emigration from the barren lands, and less affected countries will be flooded by climate refugees. On a related note, there are serious problems with soil erosion and desertification. Soil erosion and desertification are usually caused by a combination of natural processes and human activities. This may not sound so serious, but half of the topsoil on the planet has been lost in the last 150 years. 12 million hectares of land are degraded each year, or 23 hectares per minute. This doesn't only destroy precious agrarian land, but also leads to emission of carbon, which affects the global climate. On another related note, a little discussed threat is the declining bee population. For instance, between June and January 2024, 62% of all commercial honeybee colonies in the United States died. There are a multitude of factors behind this mass death, such as exposure to pesticides and climate change. This may not sound very serious, but it is. Bees play a crucial role in pollinating many crops. In other words, the declining bee population may contribute to food shortage. There will not only be shortage of food, there will also be a shortage of important metals and minerals. For instance, it's been estimated that there will be a 10 to 15% shortage of such basic metals as copper and nickel as early as 2030. We will eventually run out of rare metals and minerals that are critical for different industries. This could theoretically lead to slow down technological progress or even technological regression. To complicate matters, the deposits of these metals and minerals are in many cases concentrated to a small number of countries, with Russia and China as troubling examples. A threat which is never discussed nowadays is overpopulation. The global population has tripled since the year 1950. The UN predict that global population growth will level out around the year 2100. However, the year 2100 is far away, and the global population will grow in the meantime. This, of course, assumes that the UN's prediction isn't overly optimistic. In any case, if there will be overpopulation, the current global system will become unsustainable. There will be a shortage of food and natural resources, and possibly also conflicts and wars. Another threat is the rise of authoritarianism. As it is today, only around 30% of the world's population live in democracies. Some studies even claim that it's less than 15%. Be that as it may, this figure is shrinking as we speak. In democratic countries all over the world, populists manipulate the system and seize power. People do not only suffer more in authoritarian societies, but there is also less progress. Furthermore, there is a higher risk of war. Democratic countries don't wage war against each other, but autocratic countries do. An obvious threat is the risk of nuclear war. The saber rattling in recent years has made nuclear weapons topical again. It seems the probability of nuclear war has been increased, and once again, mankind has to face the risk of annihilation. All it takes is that a mentally unstable person becomes the president of the USA or Russia, or that there is a technical malfunction. A war between the USA and Russia is not the only threat, though. According to recent studies, even a war between India and Pakistan, which have comparatively small arsenals, may lead to a global nuclear winter. Another obvious threat is the risk of pandemics. There is consensus among virologists that there will be a big pandemic in a not distant future. If a blood fever virus like Ebola or Marburg mutates and becomes airborne, we'll face mass death of proportions never before seen in history. It would reduce mankind dramatically or hypothetically eradicate us. The latter may sound exaggerated, but in some blood fever outbreaks, the lethality has actually been 100%. The Spanish flu literally reached all corners of the world, and the COVID restrictions didn't work, so there is not really any definitive defense. A threat which has been discussed ad nauseam in recent years is artificial intelligence. There is consensus that it will bring about dramatic changes, but it's difficult to predict exactly what kind of changes. In the best case scenario, it will only bring about mass unemployment in the industrial world and widen the gap between rich and poor countries. In the worst case scenario, an artificial intelligence or a group of artificial intelligences will create lethal pathogen, start a nuclear war, or find some other way to decimate or even eradicate mankind. Finally, we have a little-known threat, the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere is a magnetic field which surrounds Earth. It protects us from harmful cosmic radiation and is a requirement for planetary life. The problem is that the magnetosphere gets weaker as we speak and at an accelerating pace. No one knows where it will end. The magnetosphere might actually disappear. In the best case scenario, mankind will face dramatically increased cancer rates and malfunctioning electronics. In the worst case scenario, Earth will be sterilized. That's it. Is there a threat I've forgotten to include? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.